it's right there. Okay. I was like, why is the roll call not there? Mr. Calvino, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DiDonato.
Present.
Ms. Linthorst.
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here.
Mr. Markulek.
Here.
Ms. Murray.
Here.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Here.
Ms. Pollara.
Here.
Mr. Sawicki.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. B. New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Torontonian on January 8th, 2019. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. May I have rise for the flags, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of September 17th, 2019 regular and closed meeting, and a resolution to approve the minutes of September 16th, 2019 ed program.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Motion carries. We don't have our student this evening, so I will make my very small report. I guess I don't have a lot of people to welcome, but thank you for coming this evening. We have several very important presentations ahead regarding our special education budget, violence and vandalism, and substance abuse, and welcoming of our special guests from AIR without the puppies. It's okay.
Not that we're not happy to see you.
I learned a lot just from one time going. It was very helpful. As a parent, board, and community member, I'm committed to supporting our administration, staff, students, and their families to ensure that our school district is free of unnecessary distractions for ideal staff working conditions and to maximize student learning and experience. I'm grateful for the experiences, capabilities, and commitment of my fellow board members who continue to make the best and sometimes difficult decisions in policy and budget to provide the resources necessary to meet the community where they are, and to our administration and staff for their passion and concern for our community and willingness to work together to create more positive environment within our school environment. It's been a difficult month as we're aware of 2 former students whose lives have been cut way too short. Our efforts are worth it, even if we can save or reset the direction of even one life. So thanks to all of you. That is all I have to say.
All righty.
You're on.
Alrighty, while many kids enjoyed a day off from school today, our staff was working hard, and we all met at the PAC early this morning, and with that we started an entire full-day program on advancing our equity efforts. We had a presenter down from Rutgers University who talked about some implicit bias in the classroom, who was very, very good and really gave us concrete examples of how to make a more culturally responsive classroom in our schools. And the entire staff actually went out and did a privilege walk on the turf field this afternoon. And then one of the most interesting parts of the day was a panel of current and former students with the full staff talking about their experiences in the district. This ranged from students of color to students of I guess they called it various stages of on the gender continuum as they experienced it. But overall, I mean, the day was fantastic, and kudos to Dr. Therese for her work and the committee. We had a committee of probably 20 staff members, our culturally responsive teaching committee, who have been doing work in the school. And I'm really proud of our district and of our staff, because I don't know of any other district around that is doing this kind of work, but to actually get, well over 400 people out talking about privilege and our responsibility and working through equity and hearing sometimes not positive experiences from our students and former students about in our classrooms, not necessarily with the teachers, but with some fellow students about just how they work through it and their experiences. But it was really a proud moment for me, and I hopefully the board, although you were not there, we went down this journey of equity probably about 5 years ago, and we have, I would say, probably the most robust equity policy, certainly in the area of ensuring that students' rights in our district. And I really want to thank the board for your support, for your work towards this, and for staying strong when it's difficult. Our transgender policy was one of, again, I think one of the most cutting in the area of really making sure that the students' rights were protected. 2 of the students on the panel today spoke about what it meant for them to be able to change their name and on course. It was a huge moment for them, and that's because of you. So thank you for all of that, because they're pretty powerful words on a piece of paper when you look at our policies, and it's our job and my job to enforce those policies. But it's the 9 members at this table who have taken some pretty strong stands, whether it is random drug testing or whether it is equity in this district. And it's something you should be proud of, especially as Elise said, and I don't want this to go unnoticed. 2 former students we lost way too soon through this, and it's as people challenge our efforts to try to address drug use and drug abuse in our schools. You want to do everything possible you can, knowing that it's not always easy. But with that, I just wanted to take hats off to those 20 staff members that organized today, and all the staff members that participated, because it's not easy confronting privilege, or especially in a district like ours where we have a lot of privilege. And it's great to see staff members recognizing and walking away from today saying, wow, that was a great day. I learned a lot and I thought a lot. So that's all we can hope for. Continuing in our efforts of programming, tomorrow we will be showing the movie Angst twice, 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., along with a panel afterwards. With that, that's in our continuing efforts to support mental health of our students. And I hope if you are not able to attend the morning, that you can certainly attend the evening one. But that's part of our continued work to making sure that we are supporting our students on all aspects of life. On a similar note, on Wednesday evening, I will send out a note about our later start time committee, and with a survey that will be going out to the full community. So I'm sure your emails will blow up sometime later in the week as people open their emails and see what's going on. We don't know where we're going to end with this, but we felt strongly, and I know the board president feels strongly, that we need to be prudent in our review of it and see what we can do, and see if it is the right fit for the Hopewell Valley Regional School District. So the committee is open to all, but we're looking for a parent, teacher, and student rep from each school to sit on that committee, and that'll take place over the next several months. And finally, in our continued work for supporting our students, particularly proud tonight to introduce someone to you as Ms. Tricia Baker, who I've known for a number of years, but she is the, I guess, president is your title, or just executive director? Okay.
Co-founder.
All right, co-founder of Attitudes in Reverse, AIR. So they do a number of programming, but you might know her best for, they're responsible for the therapy dogs that come into school, but more importantly for our partnership that we're working together, and that we are training 7 therapy dogs to be part of our district on a full-time permanent basis. And I think Ms. Susan Polera and Elise and I think Deb Lindforst watched from the balcony, watched our training session last Monday, so you're welcome to come back. She'll be with us on Mondays at 7:30 for the remainder of the school year as we work to fully train our campus. I think Steve had the campus canines. I think he had a cute title. that we were going to bring him in. So, and you've heard everybody sigh, and you could tell why what Mrs. Baker does on Mondays is after she leaves us, she goes over to Capitol Health with the dogs.
To Penn Medicine.
Oh, Penn Medicine.
Penn
Oh, sorry.
Medicine,
Sorry.
yes.
So the dogs are working, and I think they needed a break tonight.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities. I feel we've had a partnership with Hopewell Valley for many, many years. We've been going into the junior class doing mental health, suicide prevention, education, and we always bring dogs along. We've been bringing dogs in for finals, and I don't know if we've done midterms yet here.
We did
but
away with midterms.
Good for you guys, and good for you. Make this day start later.
That's it.
I've talked to over 85,000 kids, and I'll tell you, I always ask them the question, who gets 8 hours or more of sleep? And there's maybe a couple hands go up, and they're embarrassed. And then I say, who gets 5 or less? Anywhere from 25% to 50% of the kids are getting less than 5%. I know this is not what you want me to talk about tonight, but it's really key because our kids, teenagers, they should be getting a minimum of 8 to 10 hours every night. That's where they're getting their proper brain growth and development. If they're not sleeping enough, their brains aren't developing enough. So I vote for a later school start time.
The dogs have spoken.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm very grateful. Tom reached out. I've been working, I've been dog training. I'm a certified professional dog trainer. I've been training dogs for about 13, 14 years now, and we specialize in therapy dogs. As I said, the dogs go into the school along with our programming. Sometimes what happens is, we were at one local high school, and our program can be triggering for some students if they're struggling. And this girl couldn't stop crying, and she refused to talk to a counselor. I sat down next to her with one of my little dogs, and in less than 5 minutes, she stopped crying, and she got up and she walked away with a counselor. And all that happened was she interacted with the dog. So I'm working with Red Bank Regional with their school-based program. We just certified a dog for the counselor. The counselor's bringing the dog to work with the students. I'm working with a counselor over in East Windsor, Melvin H. Krebs Middle School, and I'm talking to a few other counselors now. But really excited about the program that we're doing here because we're working with 7 teams. And I know Tom's goal is to have multiple dogs on every school property every day. And so that's what we want to prepare them for. And we have a lot of really great dogs and teams who have come. They're great pets, but a pet is not necessarily a therapy dog, so we want to make sure that the dog understands all the rules and that the humans understand the rules too. And we're going to set parameters to make sure that the dogs are working appropriate hours. Therapy dogs shouldn't work more than 45 minutes to an hour at a time, and then they need a break. And that's why I've been working and talking a little bit about getting the dogs crate trained to make sure that they can sit comfortably in an office for a period of time while they're on break. So I'm very excited about doing this. I'm very grateful for the support of the board. I'm happy to answer any questions. Is there anything else you want me to talk about?
No, I just underscore that I think we're the first district.
That I know of, you're the first district. I don't know of anyone in the tri-state area who's doing what we're doing to have facility dogs on every campus every day. I don't know of anyone. I do a lot of reading. A lot of people are starting to catch up, like some of the larger organizations like CCI, they're starting to train facility dogs, but it's like 1 dog per school. And again, as I said, dogs should not work every single day either. They should be taking breaks every other day. So as far as I am aware, and I talk to a lot of people, I do a lot of research, you're very progressive in your approach in working with students. And I talk about the school district a lot when I go out and I talk to other schools and other counselors. And there's a lot of other counselors really considering and trying to work with their school district in order to bring more dogs into the schools. Everybody's so quiet.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Susan and I both went to witness the last session that they had, and I learned a lot about what I was going to do with my own dogs when I got home. I mean, you just really have a gift with the dogs and with everybody that was working.
Well, thank
with
you.
their
I
dogs.
enjoy it. It's the part of my life that brings me joy. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
So I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with the district. So right,
Just
thank you.
a quick plug, there's
Sure.
a Taste of Hope on Wednesday evening at
Yes.
the
Princeton Marriott.
For it's one of your fundraisers,
Yes,
huge fundraiser, but they also recognize some folks for their work in mental health.
yes. So if anybody wants to come, you can send me an email.
Wednesday night from 6 to 9.
Yep, very good. Thank you, Tom.
If you want to go, no problem.
All right, thank you, everybody.
you.
Have a great
Thank you very
night.
much.
I- I just wanted to add, in watching the training, it was fascinating to me how each dog and owner sort of had this unique relationship, and you saw other elements of people's personalities when they were with their dogs, and I think that will really add something to this school community for people to see.
Susan's being very nice.
Were you
'cause
commenting on Tom?
she was commenting on my dog not paying attention, which
No,
apparently was a.
It was
Was it-
like it was real. Like every dog and their owner had this unique personality
Oh, yeah.
going on. It was
My dog seemed to be causing a little bit of problems that
no,
day. I don't
she
know.
was not.
That's-
Yeah, no, it was.
Your dog's had many second chance opportunities.
Yes, yes.
Too many.
Second
No,
chance.
she
sorry.
is so
No,
sweet.
She was great, but it
Nobody
So
said she
it was
wasn't.
so you
Gotcha.
know. Of course, presented the dog like perfectly like
Bursting with love.
That's it.
groomed and on target. Yeah, it was fascinating.
But what she said was absolutely true, that we saw interaction with students who were struggling when we had our loss in district where kids were not talking to anybody. And that's really what turned the tide for all of us, is you just saw the students immediately open up, and then we could get them help and support. It was really an impressive change to see. So that is my portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Next up is our public hearing and special opportunity for public comment on the 2018-2019 District Report of Violence, Vandalism, and Substance Abuse. You're on.
Thank you. So this is the time of the year where we present our findings from the 2018-2019 school year. If you remember, probably around March of last year, I presented the first half of the year, and now it's time to look at the full year. Before we get into actual numbers, this just shows you an example of when we talk about violence, vandalism, and substance abuse. These are some of the things that fall under those categories. This is a form that we're required to fill out anytime we have any of those incidents that we have to report to the state of New Jersey. And then with that, if we have a HIB report, as part of that, there's also information that we're required to report to the state of New Jersey as well. So it just gives you some background on the forms that are required. When we look at our data for this past year, 2018-19, you can see the breakdown by different offense and by school. It should be noted when you see substance offense, that has nothing to do with the random drug testing. That's a totally separate thing. That basically is for a student who was found to be either in possession or under the influence while in school. And fortunately, the column with weapons continues to be a 0, which is always a good thing. And you can kind of see from our HIBs, you know, where we landed as far as different schools and how many were actually reported, and then how many were confirmed as HIBs.
Can I just clarify? So the under suspicion is reported here, but we don't report, other than annually, our random drug testing.
Correct. It has nothing to do with this report. So here's some trends. The one thing you'll notice with the HIB reports is it's pretty consistent as far as the number of reported and confirmed. Obviously, we had a large number of substance offense in 16-17. That number dropped, went up slightly. You know, one of the challenges, and I think all school districts are dealing with specifically, is the vaping. So vaping falls under really our tobacco and smoking policy. However, depending upon the substance in the vaping, sometimes there could be oil in there that has THC in it. Obviously, that's something that would fall under a substance abuse. So that is something that all school districts are struggling with and communities are struggling with on a whole. And then you can see our numbers of vandalism and violence.
And also, just to clarify, so last month we presented drug, and this is substance. So substance also includes alcohol, and as Tony said, some other things that are not drug related. So, you know, you see an uptick here, whereas in terms of drugs we went down, but in substances we went up, which is a whole other discussion. But just I wanted to clarify that.
And just programs, this is all the great stuff that we are doing. As Tom mentioned, we just had an entire day focusing on CRT, but obviously that's been a conversation that's been going on for several years now. Our social emotional learning, you know, our social emotional learning days, K-12 now for this year. Obviously, you know, adopting our new homework policy where we have homework-free nights, and now we're running specific schedules like the high school on S days where they're totally dedicated to social emotional learning. And now we're several years as well into our mindfulness minute, which is being implemented K-12. We're fortunate to have counselors in all of our buildings. Our campus safety officers play an important role. Our relationship with Hopewell Township Police Department. We're extremely fortunate to have a SAC not only at our high school, but also at our middle school, which a lot of middle schools don't have. Anti-bullying specialists, which are in each one of our buildings. We have a phenomenal relationship with Healthy Communities, Healthy Youth, and all the amazing work that our Municipal Alliance does. And Heidi Kami, a shout out to her because of the great work she does with our district. And then we are required, although I'll make the argument these types of activities should be happening all year long, but we are required by the state to have a week of respect. It's always the first full week in October, and also Violence and Vandalism Awareness Week, which is usually the third week in October, where there's a variety of activities going on in all of our buildings, from you know, PSAs as far as different statistics that go along with violence and vandalism, activities during lunch periods with students, activities going on during classes, so a lot of different information. Any questions on the violence and vandalism report? All right. And then the second piece. So at this time of the year that goes hand in hand with the violence and vandalism report is that each one of our school buildings has what's called a school climate team, and that's typically made up of a building administrator, several teachers, a parent from that particular school, and their job is really to take a look at the climate for their building and specifically how is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights being implemented within their building, and they're required to do on an annual basis a self-assessment with specific criteria. So I'm going to walk you through the different criteria and we'll take a look at where we scored. The first at the top is specifically the self-assessment key that goes from a 0 all the way to a 3. Core element 1 really deals with programming and the fact of having programming in all the different schools and the different initiatives that come along. As far as that goes, identifying patterns among HIBs that are reported, and you can see that for the most part we scored pretty well in those particular areas. Then you take a look at the training that we do with our staff, which includes all of our staff and volunteers and folks that come into our buildings. The training that we review on an annual basis with our staff, both in person, and then we also have some online components. And obviously, you know, most importantly, the training that we do with our students, as far as the HIB law and all the different pieces that go along with it. Staff instruction and training programs. Our staff is required to complete at least 2 hours of HIB. We do it every year, so even though that says every 5 years, we do that every year as part of, you know, our annual staff training. Suicide prevention, we've done a lot of work in that area, obviously, over the last several years. You know, the school safety teams have the opportunity to go out and do professional development along with our bullying specialists, and our school leaders as well have that opportunity to get training.
Tony, so from that standpoint, like if we have some schools that, you know, gave themselves an assessment of 2 versus 3, is that mainly due to like staff choosing to go out and do that professional development that year?
Correct, and that typically has also a direct correlation of who's doing the actual, like ABC, as far as the anti-bullying or ABS, anti-bullying specialist. For some of our buildings specifically, we've had some turnover with our staff. So one of the things that I require for someone who's new is that they have to go out and complete a certain amount of training. So some of the buildings with 3s, or you'll see some folks that there was some turnover as far as, because sometimes the same person doesn't do it all the time. If we have someone retires, or sometimes we rotate it among different people in buildings. And then if you take a look at our curriculum instruction, obviously we're doing a lot of work in that area with CRT. The personnel, just some logistics of the law. The principal has to appoint an ABS, which we have in all of our buildings. They meet with me more than twice a year, just to kind of, obviously every year in the beginning of the year, I just met with them about 2 weeks ago to regroup for the new year, review the law, review the protocols, review the timelines as far as investigations. They meet amongst themselves and their school safety teams. And then at the school level, there obviously is a protocol as far as reporting, and there's a calendar as far as the amount of days once something's received, how long it takes for the investigation, eventually till it gets to the superintendent's office, and then eventually to the board. And then our investigation procedure. So there is a written report that has to be furnished within 10 school days. The results have to go to the superintendent, and then obviously to the board. And then there's actually an annual reporting. So each year we are given a self-assessment score by the Department of Education, which you can kind of see on the bottom. And we have to post that information on our website, which we do on an annual basis. And you can see from there our total score, the possible scores, and kind of where we fared in comparison to last year. Keep in mind, from the state's perspective, a score of 50 indicates that a school meets all state requirements. We've been traditionally well above the 50, but we continue to look at trends and areas that we can improve and areas of focus, especially this really does go hand in hand with our SEL work and areas that we want to target and focus on. Any questions about self-assessment?
Just drop right here.
Public comment? Public comment on just this.
Okay. Members of the public are invited to address the board on the matters of our report of violence, vandalism, and substance abuse, and the district's implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Public comment is now open. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Okay, next on our motion. May I have a motion, please, to accept the 2 reports from Mr. Suzo? So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Moving on to our budget discussion. Here we are. Our presentation from Ms. Paulette DiNardo for our special education review.
For those of you who are following along, we are at the board committed to reviewing different portions of our budget. This cycle, we started in August. We started in August with facilities review. Last month we had curriculum instruction. This month we're looking at special education. And Paulette DiNardo, our Director of Pupil Services, is here to walk us through that area. We're moving forward. Next month, will we have the audit at that point?
I doubt it.
Okay.
GASB 75 is holding everything up.
Okay. All right. So November or December will be the audit. We'll bring back the auditor for a public presentation to go over that. And then beginning in January, we do the full-on deep dive of our, oh, Susan, you won't be here. You could come back. Good. Yeah. So it's starting in January, do the full numbers of taking all this information that you're seeing, and we'll do the deep dive of all that information. But also beginning in January, you, members of the public out there, can spend mornings with Bob Calavita and me going over our budget. So January, February, March, and April, we will be offering once each month budget breakfasts or coffee, whatever.
We don't
Coffee,
drink
good job. We don't drink coffee, but
Budget
you could
bagels.
spend budget and bagels, whatever you would like to call it. But we will lay out all the budget documents and answer any questions you might have regarding that. And we'll also do that in the evenings to make sure people can come. So without further ado, Paulette will begin budget presentation number 3, pupil services.
So I just first want to thank you for providing me the opportunity to take a few minutes and talk about our special education programming here at Hopewell Valley. So at the foundation of everything that we do in special education is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And this was a federal act that was passed in 1975 and then most recently updated in 2004. And the two main areas that I want to identify this evening are, number one, that we are to provide a free, appropriate public education for all children with disabilities. And essentially what this means is that our public school systems were required to find and evaluate students who are suspected of having a disability at no cost to families. And if they are found to have a disability, that it is our obligation to provide them an appropriate education. And then the second component that I think is really important out of the IDA is that we have to provide parents and legal guardians a voice in their child's education. So for example, if before we can implement any kind of special education services, the parents have to sign off. So for an initial eligibility meeting, our teams will do the assessments. We meet with the parents. We say, yes, your child is found eligible. But they really have to approve and say, yes, we want to move forward with you providing these services. And we can't do that unless they sign off. So under the umbrella of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the New Jersey Code. So if you look over here, I have a little visual. Deb, I think you could probably relate. This is literally in my bag and at my side daily. And this is what guides our protocols and our practices within the state of New Jersey. So there's timelines, there's process that we as educators have to follow and adhere to. And all of this is because, again, we want to make sure that we are providing a free, appropriate public education. This is near and dear to my heart because the reason I'm here is because I have two aunts. They're no longer alive, but they were born at a time and educated at a time where they were not provided an appropriate education. And I feel like their lives could have been so much fuller had these acts and this legislation been in place. So the other thing I think that's really important with the New Jersey Code is to understand that we can provide education for children as early as 3 years. So our preschool evaluation team will evaluate children 2.5, 3 years so that we can start on their 3rd birthday. We can provide them with programming, special education programming, if necessary. I'm very proud of our 5 preschool programs that we have in-house at Bear Tavern in Hopewell Elementary School. We can educate them not only from 3 years old, but all the way up until age 21. And typically our students who stay with us until they're 21 are students who have more significant challenges, learning challenges. Okay, Tony. So out of our pupil service office, these are the majority of the things that we do in my office. Again, we oversee our preschool students through age 21 who are receiving special education programming in district and in out-of-district placements. We're responsible for over 55 certificated staff that include teachers, therapists, nurses, social workers, psychologists, learning disability teacher consultants. We also oversee all the testing that is done by our child study team. We're the liaison between the school and the district physician. We oversee counseling services. I'm the homeless liaison, so if I have a student in our district who is deemed homeless and fits the criteria, I make sure that we provide them the supports that they need so that they can access their education and have opportunities. We oversee the home instruction for all of our students in the district who are out of school for medical reasons. Oversee the IDEA grant and the SEMI, the Special Education Medicaid Initiative. We develop and manage the budget. We oversee extended school year. That's for our students who are receiving special education services who are at risk of losing skills that they've learned during the school year. So we provide a 5-week program at one of the schools, preschool through age 21, where we're reviewing skills that they have worked on and mastered through the previous school year. And we have a supervisor of special education preschool through age 21 that is currently open right now. And then we also have a school counseling supervisor, Dr. Abrams. So this is just like a pretty, pretty picture of what everything is. And the pupil service office, our secretaries upstairs, and our child study teams, I think it's, until you're in it, you don't realize the amount of paperwork because of the New Jersey Code that kind of guide what we do with regard to evaluations and protocols and programming. It's pretty amazing the paper trail that needs to take place to make sure our children are receiving what they need. Okay. So currently, this is as of Friday, we have 714 students in our district who are receiving special education services. And I did the breakdown. Once the student is evaluated and found eligible, there's a series of categories, eligibility categories that they fit based on the criteria and the outcomes from the testing. So this is the breakdown of our student population. And then we have our programs that are within the district. I spoke briefly a few minutes ago about our preschool programs out of Bear Tavern and Hopewell Elementary School, where we service and support our students ages 3 to 5. Very proud of those programs. It's quite amazing. If you have the opportunity, I'd love to walk you through those classes, because the work that they're doing for our children and the importance of early intervention really is, you see it in those classrooms daily. At Bear Tavern, we have our autism program that's preschool through grade 3. In Hopewell Elementary, we have our language learning disabled class, which is LLD, and that's K through 5. In Tollgate Elementary, we have our behavioral class, grades K through 3. Stony Brook, we have a K through 5 multiply disabled classroom. Timberlane, we have the multiply disabled classroom. We also have it at Central High School. We have a very strong transition program out of that for our students that go up to age 21, where we prepare them for work skills and daily living skills beyond school. We also have an emotional support class. That's a half-day program at Central High School. This is the second year. Again, if you have an opportunity to see what our teacher, Mrs. Burns, has done with that room, it's a very safe haven for a lot of our students who struggle with school phobia. She's doing an amazing job. And then at Central High School, our first year, our students that were in the behavioral class at the middle school have now transitioned up to the high school. And so far, it's going really, really well. Yes?
If I could ask one question. In
Absolutely.
terms of where certain areas of specialty are located in the elementary schools, what is it that drove those locations? Is it meeting a need of the students who tend to be more prevalent at that particular school, or is it based upon where the specialists have been traditionally located?
That's a great question, Adam. So I can tell you at Bear Tavern, we had, when I started in administration, we had a preschool autism class. So it just was a natural progression. We had just opened it for those students to stay in Bear Tavern with that program. At Hopewell Elementary, again, we've had the LLD program when I was a teacher. It was in place there. Tollgate is new. I think that's in the last 5 years, and that was a program that was already approved. It has evolved, I'd say, over the last 4 or 5 years for our students that have a little more behavioral needs. Initially, it was more students who have behavioral issues, but were linked to students who are on the spectrum. And then Stony Brook, I believe that program has been in place even prior to me assuming as an administrator. So it was already in existence.
Location, too.
Yes.
There's a 3 classroom also. And for preschool, we wanted one to be on either side of the town. So we split them, so we have 2, so that nobody's traveling. Because preschool, particularly with 3-year-olds, you don't want somebody coming all the way down to Bear Tavern from the borough.
So before I get into class sizes, when we look at least restrictive environment, when we're identifying eligibility for students with special education, least restrictive environment for a student would be, with an IEP, would be a collaborative classroom. And I think you probably all are aware of what those are. It's 2 teachers in a classroom. One is a certified special education teacher, and the other is a general education teacher. And if you look at that top line, this is our New Jersey code guides how many, the number of kids we can have in a collaborative class that have an IEP. So by code, at the preschool and elementary level, it cannot exceed 8. And at the high school level, it cannot exceed 10. And that's what we have to adhere to. And then the next, as far as least restrictive environment, is a resource room where we're still exposing students to the curriculum. It's a smaller class size, and it is at a slower pace. But again, if you look at our elementary resource rooms, we can have up to 6 with no paraprofessional. But then once we put the 7th student in, we have to have a paraprofessional, and we cannot exceed 9. And then at the 6 through 12, we can have up to 9 without a paraprofessional, and then 10 to 12, we have to have a para based on the New Jersey code. So these are currently our out-of-district placements. So there's 38 students that are in 20 New Jersey state-approved special education out-of-district placements, and those are a list of the placements. I do want to pull up my notes. So I actually, yes.
On the numbers that you showed on that, the previous slide with numbers of students served, were these 38 students included in that?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So that's actually a really good question too. So
Out of
when
the
we're-
715, right?
Oh yes, they were included in that. They were not included in the class sizes though.
Right.
Okay.
I meant, thank
You
you.
meant that, yes,
Welcome.
yes, you are.
I was
that
going to
is
ask the
correct.
same question.
Yes.
And is the 715, what percentage is that of the population of students? 12%, 15%? It's usually about,
It's actually almost 20.
oh, ooh. Wow.
But we do have a booming preschool, which does contribute a little higher number. So what I wanted to say was I taught in Ohio, in the state of Ohio. And in the state of Ohio, I was in Cincinnati at a junior high. And they have no out-of-district placements. So in my, what was called a resource room, I had 19 students. And I had some students in the same room that are now college graduates, of students who were nonverbal, severely autistic. And I did my best. I do not feel that we serviced children in the right way for some of these students. So coming to New Jersey and having the opportunity to work here and understand that, you know, we do really wonderful things here. We have great programs in Hopewell Valley, but there are some students who do need a more specialized therapeutic placement. And when we look at least restrictive environment, we're looking at, like I said, the collaborative classrooms being the least restrictive, a resource room classroom being a smaller class size, still, you know, providing the curriculum, slower pace. We're looking at special classes, which was a couple slides away earlier. And then if they just need just a smaller, more therapeutic environment, we have these options of out-of-district placements. So that's least restricted to most restrictive.
Actually, if I can ask one question.
Sure.
In regard to that, you know, we talked about like benchmarking. What's our total percentage of population that receives special education services? From the standpoint of over the past number of years, you know, we had a goal of trying to
Yes.
retain as many students as we could. You know,
Yes.
to show that through, you know, offering the services in district, we'd have to have fewer out-of-district placements. I know it's difficult because every special education case is unique, but do we benchmark ourselves in terms of like the percentage that we are able to retain within district
Yes.
versus other?
So I'm really glad because you reminded me. Could you go back? Thank you, because I took notes. So actually go back to the out-of-district placements.
The school?
Yeah, it's out-of-district placements, yeah.
That's where
There we go. So, and thank you, because I did look back. So when I look back, so this is my third year here as director. In the 17-18 school year, we had 43 students who were in out-of-district placements. In the 18-19 school year, we had 42. So and now this year, we're starting with 38. 10 years ago, in 2009-2010 school year, we had 67 students in out-of-district placements. So it is a process. I mean, in an ideal world, I would love to have all of our students back home with us, but in reality, there are certain services and certain programs that it's almost impossible to recreate in a public school system.
In addition to 715 this year, what were we in 2009?
So
And-
I don't have that.
And would numbers dictate how we perceived a student to be evaluated? Meaning our evaluation process 10 years ago would determine whether or not someone had a special need.
So the process is the same, Peter, in that when we go through an evaluation process, so when either the educational team or the parents request an evaluation by the child study team, I'll talk you through that very quickly. Within 20 days, the child study team has to hold a meeting with the parents, and they discuss what the concerns are. And the child study team decides whether or not testing is warranted. And when testing is warranted, they have 90 days to do a series of evaluations. So they do an educational, a psychological, and a social. Those are the basic evaluations that are done. Sometimes they may do a PT, physical therapy evaluation, occupational therapy, speech. Sometimes we may need to have a student have a psychiatric evaluation, for example, or an auditory processing evaluation. And then with all that information, and this has been consistent through the years, at least in the last 26 that I've been doing this, we identify if in fact a student does have a disability and if in fact that disability adversely affects their ability to function in the classroom. And then we find them eligible. And then through that eligibility, we design an individualized education program. Does that answer your question? So it's basically the same. It hasn't changed over the last at least 25 years that I know of, with regard to eligibility.
That definitely helps me understand the process. I mean, I don't understand what the total number would be, of the numbers. So we had 715.
Yeah, so I can check that for you. I don't have those numbers, but I will definitely go into our archives and look that up for you.
Do you have a hypothesis, Pete? Are you thinking that there's more?
Well, I mean, special education costs are expensive. So I'm beyond elated that we are taking more in than we're pushing out. And the number that we push out, is decreasing. I don't know if it really means anything other than it could just be people move out of district. I don't really know the reasons.
Well, here's something that I can share. So in the last 5 days, I received 3 emails from 3 parents that are moving in the next 4 to 6 weeks that have children with individualized education plans. 3 of those children, based on what the parents' information they're all in out of districts, and they are all very, very involved medically and or other challenges. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. Again, they're moving in, and we have to review, the child study team will review the information and determine what the program is that's most appropriate for the children. But that has just been in the last 5 days.
Are they in state? Are they moving?
So one is moving in from out of state, and the other 2 are in state. Okay, so these are some of the costs, and it is very expensive. So the total cost related to special education is $14.3 million. The bulk of our IDEA funding that we receive goes towards our out-of-district, actually all of it goes to our out-of-district tuitions. These are some areas that I wanted to highlight just to kind of explain what they are and if you look at the top one, that you see 760,000, and you think, oh my goodness. We have several students. One is actually in our schools. She came to us as a kindergartner, and I'm going to talk about her in a few moments. The other students are in out-of-district placements, and they are identified as medically fragile. They come to school every day with a one-to-one nurse because of reasons such as they have tubes, they have tracheas, they have feeding tubes, they need care because of their medical issues. And when we look at that nursing cost, that one-to-one nurse on average is around $80,000 a year. Home programming, again, that's supporting students specifically who are on the spectrum, who have some pretty involved behavioral challenges and issues. So we provide that as well. Evaluations, equipment. If you look at the equipment, we just purchased a stander for a young lady. Again, that's so that we put her in the stander and she's part of the group and in the class and participates. It's a big part of her educational day. The next line, we're looking at outside evaluations. So again, with regard to just really identifying what the need is and how we can program effectively for our students, we may need to seek outside evaluations such as a psychiatric, a neuropsych, neurodevelopmental, and that's what those lines are, that line of cost is. We also cover the school physician, drug testing, professional development for our nurses. Our school physician consults with our coaches, our staff, and the athletic trainers. And then other purchases at the bottom, again, mental health, our nursing subs. We also handle medical waste, the CPR training, and Stericycle. These are just some other line items. So the OTPT supplies, if you would look in and you would see co-writer and FM systems, they're really important for a lot of our students. And I don't know if you've been in a classroom where you see a tower and you'll see a teacher wearing a microphone. And then you'll see our students, they've actually more discreet than when they were when I was teaching 20 years ago. But the student wears a system in his ear or her ear, and the teacher has the microphone. And that's for our students who have hearing issues or who have severe central auditory processing deficits. And it helps them to really understand and focus in on what the teacher's saying. And it's really important tool for our students with those issues. Learning Ally, we have really opened up many doors for our students who struggle with reading fluency. And that's our books on tape, basically. And we offer it not only for our students with IEPs, but also our students who have 504 plans where they would benefit from this. And then under health supplies, EpiPens are really expensive. I didn't know that until I began this job, but it's pretty crazy. But we need them for our students.
They expire.
Yeah, and they expire every year, so we have to go through. And I have to say, Lori Kelly, my secretary, she's constantly making calls trying to find a good deal for us because they are crazy expensive. And we cover the audiometers, the calibration in the summer. They come in, they take them, and they get them ready for the school year. And then all of our health supplies for our nurses. We do contract with PT, OT, and assistive tech, again, for our students who have issues that require teacher of the deaf and audiology, or students with cochlear implants and hearing impairments. It's crucial that we have these people involved. Our teacher of the deaf is in many of our buildings weekly, supporting our speech therapists, the teachers, as well as the student. And our audiologist, she comes in and consults with us, especially our speech pathologist as needed, to, again, assist with the FM units and the hearing systems that we have in place. So this is my least favorite part of this job. I think I was at a conference last year, and I think they said New Jersey is the third most litigious state with regard to special education.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
New
it's
York
third.
and Pennsylvania and Texas is really high.
Lakewood areas.
Yeah. So this was our costs for attorney costs and legal settlements for the 18-19 school year. So here's what I can tell you about being in the courtroom, because I have been. It's really pretty awful for everyone. In my opinion, nobody wins. So this New Jersey code, the guides, I don't know where I put it, but part of the New Jersey code, when a parent files for mediation in due process, I'm required to hold a resolution meeting, just one. I can tell you that I have held 5, 6, 7, 8 resolution meetings to work with families over the last 3 years. Just because I, again, really want to work work collaboratively to do what's best for children. And so, once you get into the courtroom, I know that cost looks really high.
Seems
It goes
low.
up substantially.
I think it seems low.
Well, that's because you're living this world. Once you get into the courtroom,
That's an annual number, not,
I know.
that's
not the
I'm
total.
thinking if you have 3 settlements,
well, that's not even, yeah, you're right.
you know?
So we work just really hard, although usually parents will file for mediation and due process for unilateral placements, meaning that even though we have these great programs, they feel that usually it's a non-accredited, non-approved private school is more appropriate. And that's what usually happens. But I'm trying to work really hard with families to find a resolution, to work with them collaboratively to come to some agreements. Okay, so this is the best part of my presentation. So that is Annika. And Annika joined us at Central High School this year. Are you able to see the Morning Buzz on last Friday? Are you able to access it? I wanted to put it on, but I was afraid it was going to take too much time. She's actually on there. So Annika's not able to speak. She uses that iPad and a program called Proloquo, and she uses it so fluently. She's probably the most fluent speaker with this device that I've ever seen in my career. And she is loving Central High School and loving being a part of our community. So she's back with us from an out-of-district placement.
That's awesome.
I have more, 2 more. And if you look to the left, that is Lucia. Lucia was at Mercer County Special Services for her preschool years. And her parents approached me a little over a year ago, and Lucia won my heart after the first meeting. She is pretty involved, as you can see. What can I tell you? She is so happy. If you see that smile on her face, she's like that all the time when she's at school with her friends in kindergarten. So she's having a great year. And then to the right, that's Snigdha and Callie. And Callie is, Tom, can you point to Callie? She's on your right. She's right there, yeah. Callie comes to us from Katzenbach. So Callie was at Katzenbach until last year. She did half day at Katzenbach, half day at Timberlane. She is deaf, and she reads lips really well. We do have a sign language interpreter with her that shadows her, and she is thrilled to be at Central High School full time. So this is what makes everything worth it, seeing the success.
I also just want to add that it's also a tremendous benefit for children who aren't special needs to be interacting daily in a very normal way with, it's just, it's been tremendous for my older son as part of the
Poof, yes,
program.
the Timberlane
And,
Pierce program.
and it's, he has a partner who has special needs, and it's just been a great experience for him. So, but ever since Hopewell Elementary, when there were students who had Down syndrome in his class, and it was just amazing. And so I think everyone is benefiting.
Yes.
from
When it's done right, it is. I think everybody benefits. Do you have any other questions for me?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
I just want to commend you because in the 5 years I've been here watching, I've just really never experienced so much care and passion for children who otherwise wouldn't have that voice. I mean, you are just, I mean, it makes me want to cry. You're just a gift to our district, and it definitely trickles down from you, Dr. Smith, because he has a background in special education, and I've witnessed what you're like with the kids in the classroom. We haven't done it in a little while. It'd be nice to do another tour of those,
Anytime. I would
the
love
different
to.
classrooms, if you guys can make the time or arrange it. It's really, it's very powerful. And I'll say, like, when we've had, like, for example, the Unified Track Team come in, and they've done some really amazing things in the world. And I'd hoped that my daughter, because she runs track, I'd hoped that she'd go out for it. And what I didn't realize was there was an opportunity for a unified soccer team. So I've been taking her on Sundays, and you know, when I go to pick her up, and they're FaceTiming and selfieing together and stuff. It is a gift for other children as well to be part of that world, and it's really moving. And I appreciate you making sure that those kids get taken care of in the classroom and outside of the classroom and extracurriculars and all that good stuff.
Support. I could not do this without you and Dr. Smith, so thank you all.
And it's rewarding, but it's also one of the toughest jobs. You have a very tough job, so thank you for all you do.
And on the legislative front, I will continue to see what progress, if any, is made with the reauthorization of IDEA, and we'll stay in touch. Yes.
Thank you, Deb. When do I do the second public comment?
You can do it now.
Right now?
I guess I just have a budget
Yep.
question, just as I'm understanding, like, where on the, like, holy cow, all of our expenses, special, it's staff, health insurance, is that huge chunk of our budget. Like, is special needs the next largest sort of line item? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then facilities?
I mean, general staff, but in terms of, if you go by like total staff, dollars and cents, benefits,
Right.
special education
education,
is up there in
yeah.
this general running of the facilities, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, they get an unfair rap in having sat in Paulette's seat. It is, the regulations, and I think, what is the code up to, 82 pages? I think when I started, it was 15 pages. So all of that, it just keeps getting added to, and more parameters and things like that. So it is, and stuff.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I not at all was giving a bad.
No, but it's.
It was just really putting it in context
Yeah.
with what it really costs
Yeah.
to provide this kind of quality
Yeah.
programming for our district and
Yeah.
the students and families.
If anything, one would hope that as the amount of code increased, the amount of litigation to drive certain outcomes would decrease, but the perception we at least have is that it hasn't. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Anything else? Thank you. So our first open public comment for any matter. Members of the public are invited to address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. During this portion of the meeting, you're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also have to take the matter up at a future meeting, so the matter is researched by district administration. Public comment is now open and closed because we don't have anybody. Next on our agenda, we'll do the consent agenda. So may I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Is there any discussion or anything that anyone wants removed from
I guess I have one question on the enrollment report. I'm gonna pull it off on that now, whatever you like.
How do you want to do it? Do you
Pull it.
want to pull it?
Yeah. And if I could request a G2, please.
Both?
Actually, it was just the the August secretary PDF.
That's fine. It's the whole item, yeah. We pulled G2. We have enrollment in G2.
Okay, so minus enrollment and G2. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Motion carries. Okay. Oops.
Peak facilities.
One more question?
Can we hear a question?
Are we going to do that when we get to the enrollment?
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
So finance and facilities, Mr. DiDonato.
I would like a motion to move an item on the agenda that related to the acceptance of a donation of a Strider equipment.
So moved.
$219 being donated. Get a second?
Second?
So somebody was generous enough to donate a Strider bike with a value of $219, a single bike, which from what I understand is pretty cool. A little elliptical trainer that is also a bicycle.
It's going to be used at Timberline.
Can be used, oh right, Timberland, yeah, I forgot to mention that. We met today for a brief meeting. We talked over a few things. One of the items was just general referendum updates. So Tom Quinn was able to come in and just give us a brief of some of the things that the projects that we're trying to close up. We're still making progress in the Black Box Theater. I think it's slow but steady. GDS has a guy, a person there that's continuing to do work. We are nearing completion of our vestibules at the elementary schools, and a couple tiny snags at Bear Tavern, but I think they're finishing that with some updates to an engineering plan or permit for the engineering plan. The media centers that we originally proposed to have completed on October 31st should be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks from that, and that is the actual completion of the media centers and then the furniture that would be involved for the placement within those media centers. So they should be sometime before the end of November that we're thinking that they should be completed. We had an issue with I don't know, was it one generator or several generators? Some of the new generators that we just put in. We actually had the company Generac come out. They sent a couple of their top engineers to help us resolve one of the issues that we realized was actually a part of the generator itself. So they were able to resolve it. They assisted in some of the ongoing contract stuff and maintenance, and they were, they realized, some of the things that were, I don't know, quality, just how they were sort of piecing these things together, but they assisted us in just, getting the stuff done with all of our generators. So that was a big win. We also talked about, just the general, some of the budget guidelines and some of the drivers. So we just, from a high level, looked at things and what we should be, focusing on. You'll see in one of the reports, but it is an ongoing maintenance plan for the next 2 years. So you guys, there's a PDF in there for you to look at. These are just some of the things that we're projecting. I think on average of about 1.4 million in repairs and other things that are by school. So you'll see the additions and calculations there. Outside of that, I don't have anything else. Questions?
We got the donation on the board. We got to vote for that, and then we'll move the second item. Adam can ask his questions.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries.
Okay, move the financial report.
Do you want to move your financial report?
Yeah, I'd like a motion to move the financial report from the agenda.
So moved.
Second. No, I had reviewed this. The August Secretary PDF was a new document that I hadn't seen before on our finance and facilities presentation. So I came here and, had some questions when I had reviewed it, and I was able to spend some time with Bob before the meeting. So I certainly got all the questions that I had answered. I think the main questions I had were, one, what new is there any information specific to this report that we should be aware of compared to what the other materials we get from the monthly financial reports? And really, it's the information on the first couple pages in terms of the general fund with regard to the cash balances, how those reconcile actually into the treasurer's report that's also in the financial report. So he was able to explain that to me. I had also asked him about what I saw as the difference in some of the numbers for capital reserve, and that related to where one of the numbers was in terms of, as you would, I thought you described it, Bob, in terms of where it is in its reconciliation process at this point. The first page number of 3.3 million is consistent with where we are.
The second number is just the money has to be reconciled through the audit. Once the auditor reconciles, it'll be balanced out. And just to, Adam and I had a good discussion on the phone earlier and then before the meeting, but the report, typically we gave the overview. The treasurer's report is a overview of our cash position. But as part of the secretary's report has always been something that we do every month since years and years. But we've added it to the agenda. I think we started adding it in July after a meeting I attended regarding CUSAC, that the actual full treasurer's report should be on the agenda as well as the cash position report. So now we're putting both reports on it. And what Adam stated correctly was that the treasury report's kind of this overarching summary of our cash position, where the secretary's report offers all the detail behind all the other lines of a balance sheet.
Yep.
Your accounts receivables, your balances, your other lines in that. So that's
right.
That's how they reconcile.
And beyond that, the other thing I had asked him was, one thing that I've used when it comes to budget process time is using the user-friendly budgets that we get historically. And I was asking him, do some of the line items and that correlate at this time to what's in those user-friendly budgets, and they don't at this time. So, that was more or less my question.
The user-friendly budget numbers, as you know, Ed and I discussed, they kind of lump a bunch of different numbers into one number, and they're misleading. And we can go through that as we go through the budget, and I could show you exactly where the numbers are on the user-friendly budget and where they are in the audit. Adam and I did that last spring and with the Finance Facilities Committee, but they correlate, but not one-to-one. They're two of these pieces make this number and three pieces make that number. And so we can go through that if the board wants to later in the year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and if anything, like seeing, I all appreciate the fact that we're seeing, this as well as some of the capital planning, the expended, the maintenance, planned expenses and stuff, and I think that helps bring good visibility. That and discussions like Paulette gave tonight, so it's really.
That's on our agenda for next month.
Great. All right, thank you.
And just to add, there's nothing better than having the board. We operate as a whole, so be involved in this process. And I don't think it's the finance committee's responsibility, other than just advise, and that's kind of what we've been doing. But I think it's important, especially moving forward. If you're going to attend the workshops, hit a few more finance things. Really get to know it, because this cycle, this calendar year, we have everything that we want to do from a finance perspective should be transparent, 100%, all the way through. And I think having these meetings to allow everyone a better understanding of where things are at, where we've been going, providing the level of detail, and and really getting down to the elements that drive this are critical.
Thank you. Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Sarah's not here for personnel. We'd like a motion, please, to move the personnel items.
Second.
So just a quick summary of our meeting. 4 different things really we discussed. First, the special education supervisor search. There will be 2 days of interviews that will take place on October 29th and 30th. We have a total of 12 candidates. We'll be interviewing over 2 days. Our hope is to make a recommendation to the board for our November 18th meeting. We also discussed the rubrics that we use to evaluate our district staff. I think we'll be talking a little bit about that. One of our policies and discussions is about evaluation. So this year we did actually make a change for our administrative rubric where we had been using the strong model in the past. We're now using the model that's endorsed by the Department of Ed in New Jersey. We reviewed the violence and vandalism report, which the full board saw this evening, and we also discussed expectations for advisors and coaches for extracurricular activities for both folks that are in district, meaning they teach for us, and also for folks that are out of district where they coach for us but perhaps do not work here during the day as a teacher.
That's great. If I could comment on one thing with regard to that, Tony, I had some communication with Dr. Smith and Sarah with regard to that. Just if anything, it illustrated to me, over the process of our negotiations over the last year, we really worked with the association, getting set on some hours, for example, at the middle school to help us with some of our programming there. Just looking at what we have in the memorandum of agreement, there are some changes there, some of which are related to like definition on schedules and stuff. I think are very good. I think we could, as you alluded to, Stanford, we can improve some things that we do in terms of our curricular appointments.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DiDonato.
Yes.
Ms. Linthorst.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Markulek.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Ms. Pollara.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Ed program.
Okay. Oh, is this on? The red light's on. Okay. Great. It's on. So everything was on consent agenda, but I just wanted to fill you in on 2 topics we covered during our meeting last week. The first was Dr. Christine Abrams did a fantastic presentation on the Nurtured Heart program and how it's grown and is growing, and how this approach is really helping parents and hopefully staff create environments where I'm not going to do it justice. Create environments where there is not the tension and the headbutting that parents and children may experience, and it's a new approach on how to communicate with children that sort of takes the energy, the negative energy out of it, and it's very this matter-of-fact, peaceful kind of communication, and there's been great success. Dr. Abrams shared with us some of her success stories, and she is being recognized, right, at the mayor's.
Yes, she is the
Yes.
volunteer.
Volunteer of
She
the
is
year.
Volunteer of the Year at the mayor's breakfast in November. So she's really done tremendous work on this. She has become has done significant training in this, and was even talking about how other districts are reaching out to her as a resource now around Nurtured Heart. So, and she is starting a new training session, right? Is that right, for families?
Yep. Just started.
So, and that is during the day, though, is my understanding. Is that?
It's during, no, this one's during the evening.
This
next
one's
one.
evening? Okay.
Yeah, right.
So, it's evening
Yeah.
one.
She's 3 weeks into it.
So, so great success there, and looking forward to seeing more success around that. And then the next piece that Dr. Treese really started to walk us through were the results of the NJ.
SLA, Student Learning
Yeah.
Assessment.
Yep, the learning assessment, formerly known as PARC.
Correct.
And it was a lot of data, and the committee asked Dr. Treese before sort of pushing the data out there that maybe we could look at an executive summary of some sort to really look at areas of significant growth and areas where there were opportunities for more growth in the positive direction. So she'll be getting that back to us. But all the data is in the meeting agendas
Yeah,
for the
for that,
education
yeah.
program. So if you want to follow the presentation on Nurtured Heart or look at that, it's the is it the 3-year board? Let me just open that up. Yep,
Yeah.
it is the 3-year Board of Education report, NJSLA PARC results.
I will say this, having, looked at it, the one thing I took from it, there were definitely some positive things that occurred at the middle school. For a couple of years, we'd had some issues, probably the one that was, that I can remember best was the alignment of our mathematics programs to the evaluations because of the way we broke our programs up, they didn't necessarily align to what the students were being evaluated on. Dr. Politzis made some modifications, some logical ones where we weren't, just teaching to the test. We were actually doing things at the right time, but doing some logical adjustments, and the results definitely have improved.
Thank you. Community relations.
So we looked at some examples of what our new website is going to look like, and I can't remember exactly when the new website will be up and running.
After the first of the year,
After the first of the year,
the calendar year.
as well as the new app for our phones, which will be great.
Ta-da!
Yay!
This will be amazing.
That will be great. That was pushed by Susan, and I think a lot of the younger generation parents than me use apps more than I do. We also talked about some of the parent programs and students like angst that's going on. Deb had a good idea of a basketball player who comes and speaks that we talked about and would like to try to do, and some other programs both for the students and parents dealing with mental health and awareness and substance abuse. And then lastly, there's one other thing. The later start times. That was the start times letter that will be going out. We got a little preview of that and survey.
Great. Any questions or comments for Jenny? Okay. Policy.
Okay. Can I get a motion to move the large number of policies and regulations up for first reading, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So I hope this wasn't too much. It was a little intimidating. We have policy and regulation 3221, 22, 23, and 24. These basically are the policies and regulations which cover our evaluations of our teaching staff members who are not teachers, principals, and other staff members like other administrators and such. And they're related, of course, and they are actually fairly straightforward in terms of them basically making some changes to the evaluation process, mainly related to who does certain evaluations, basically how the process changes in terms of what I call resolution if we have like an improvement plan. So some of that has changed. Also, it puts into place some of the changes related to some of the recent state level changes in how SGOs, the student growth objectives, and the SGPs, the student growth percentiles, are weighted towards the teacher's evaluations. You may remember several years ago when these types of things started being weighted towards teachers' evaluations. They were fairly heavily weighted, and they weren't necessarily weighted in an equitable fashion. Certain teachers, it was a large percentage of their evaluation. Others, it wasn't a significant percentage at all. Well, that's changed, and while for some teachers they will still have SGOs and SGPs weighting towards their evaluation, it's a far less significant percentile. So, it seems like an overall more fair type of process. So, we've been through them. If anything, going through the policies and regulations was a relatively short thing in our policy meeting. What we spent more time doing was learning more about how those processes are changing, and if anything, it was good. We got to see some of the evaluation rubrics for those folks as well, and those have been posted available as well. So we're recommending those 8 policies and regs for approval on first reading.
Just a quick question. Are we using a software tool, something
Yes.
for all of this? Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually,
I mean, I didn't
actually,
see
Mike,
it in here. But
it doesn't define it, Mike, but actually part of what it is kind of like what we did in terms of the superintendent's evaluation. Some of the language that changed was the designation of a written report. It changes to utilization of the Department of Education software.
Okay, perfect.
But the on-course program that we have for students, it rolls into, it's all-inclusive.
Oh, good.
So it's evaluation, it ties, uploads, everything. It's so much easier.
Yeah, I didn't want to think that we were, printing a report,
Yep.
paper reports and putting them in,
Yep.
No.
manila folders in the superintendent's office.
Those days gone.
Okay, so we're recommending approval on first reading for those 8.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Great. Can I get a motion to move the policies and regulation up for second reading, please?
So moved.
Great. Okay, so what we have up for second reading are policy and regulation 2361, acceptable use of computing network and computer resources, and policy 0171 for election and duties of board president and vice president. So the first two we discussed last month, mainly related to some changes related to how we do our presentation of our computing acceptable use policies, more or less codifying that we will discuss it here on an annual basis at our board meetings, but also noting that we have our community discussion on our acceptable use of computing resources that we do annually to the parents and students and such. And the policy related to board president, vice president was more or less just putting into place some standard practices that we've evolved over the years that the board president has traditionally done, board vice president has traditionally done. So just putting it in there. Also putting in that item in terms of graduation. That nice thing that we're adding to make sure that if you've served on the board, it's a nice thing to be able to give your child or some relative a diploma.
That's it.
If they graduate.
We've called that the Polaro rule.
So we're again, yeah. I don't think there have been any changes since the
Nope,
first reading,
changes
so
there.
we're recommending these for adoption in second reading.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mike.
Just a comment, being a cybersecurity guy, I think that the cybersecurity policies are well written. My only concern is they're not inclusive enough, right? It doesn't address things like accessing personal email on, school networks. So I think, as the world is changing with cybersecurity, there's new things being written all the time.
Mhm.
If you're gonna look at it on an annual basis, I'd recommend
Yeah.
that you get,
Okay.
what's our guy? What?
Dennis?
Yeah, get Dennis to kind of weigh in on some of this.
Okay.
Because things are.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
I think you've got a good basic set here.
Okay, but yes, it's going to be continually
Yeah.
evolving.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's. I think that's a great suggestion, Mike. Let's make that part of our process when policy brings it up for like first review in the fall. Heading into the new school year, let's make sure Dennis weighs in on it. Reviews and checks.
Ms. Linthorst,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Markulik,
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly,
Yes.
Ms. Polaro,
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki,
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato,
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Are there any items?
There's a
For the
enrollment.
enrollment report.
Enrollment.
Oh, are we there yet?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I was gonna do the old new business.
Oh.
Okay, we'll do.
What is new business?
We didn't do old business yet and new business. is
Oh,
on the agenda. Do you want me to do
Up to you.
routine items first?
I'll stop talking.
It's fine. So, under routine items, we want to discuss the enrollment report. You're on.
Motion?
Oh,
So moved.
Second?
Second.
thank you.
Yeah, the only question I have is third grade at Bear Tavern has 14 students in a class. And I know that we can't plan everything perfectly, and I know that we try to keep, acceptable use numbers, but, when we're talking about 14, 15, and 17, to me, that looks like two sections, not three.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's a reason, do we have move-outs, is that just?
Part of that was a move out. The other is they are particularly inclusive classes that they try to keep down on the other side, and they bring students in. So that's the general education students
Okay.
on that side.
All right. Yeah, it always concerns me when I
Yep.
start to see numbers that get into, the 14 range.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
otherwise I'm fine.
Yeah. Actually, while we have it open, could I ask one question that I thought of earlier and I forgot to ask, which is, under Central High School, we have a listing of grade 8 plus 9, 1 plus 271. I'm just curious as to what that designation.
I think there's one 8th grader who's taken or doing something over at the high school. I can't.
That's a student in one of our special programs who moved up with the class.
Oh,
So it's grade levels technically 8.
but getting services which are more appropriate, we applied at high school. Great.
It's nice having Colin.
Yeah. You gonna come more often?
Oh,
Every month.
well, and she's going to be here for executive session too. So it's really.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Are there any items of old business that anyone needs to bring up? Any items of new business? Okay. Public comment?
You're on a roll.
I am.
Forgot calendar.
Yep.
Going to calendar first, okay. All right. Calendars?
Motion?
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Kenny's the second today.
Oh, they're already up there. That's what I was just asking.
All right.
Sure. Would would Friday the 1st work for a policy meeting? Or- Oh, I apologize.
So don't forget those who are attending, tomorrow, our meeting here. Yes. Our meeting here tomorrow.
Meet and greet.
Gosh, the workshop is already next week.
Yeah.
Wow, that came really quickly. Anything else this month?
No.
Yeah, now we're on November.
sorry
We're on
about that.
November.
Yeah. Would the 1st work?
First work for policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
8:30.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Super.
We'll call you, Pete.
That's a better idea. Actually, I'm going to come in.
That's-
I'm coming in this time.
It's coming in the night before.
3:30 PM.
On Friday.
Anything else?
Does Tuesday the 12th work for you guys? Because that Tuesday time seemed to work for Jeff
Tuesday?
and Susan.
What time?
The 4:30 time worked for everyone last time
Okay.
on the 12th.
Sure.
Tuesday the 12th, 4:30?
Yeah.
Yep.
Two o'clock.
4:30.
That evening, Mr. Souza will be presenting his annual technology parent presentation. And
morning.
morning, because we do that now.
Should we put it on?
We do morning and
You have
evening.
to.
People seem to like it.
It's a community relations thing to do.
We enjoy it.
It's a blast from the past.
Anything else?
Okay. We have to approve it.
All those in favor?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. All right. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by district administration. Seeing no one for public comment, public comment is now closed. May I have a motion, please, to exit our public meeting and go into executive session to discuss harassment, intimidation, and bullying matters, special education matter, a residency matter, our district security plan, and a personal matter involving employee number 4078.
No action will be taken.
No action will be taken.
Yeah, we do. Action may be
Action
taken.
may be taken.
Action may be taken. So, motion, please.